That's Nick.
And that's Joseph. And today we're here to talk about Madres, the directorial debut of Ryan Zaragoza, which premieres on Amazon Prime October 8th, 2021. Notably, it is part of the second season of Welcome to the Blumhouse, a series of 4 horror genre films like last year that are part of this Blumhouse series. We saw a screening of this as part of the Hola Mexico Film Festival, the 13th annual one, which was not a festival I was aware of before that, which I think might have enhanced the experience a little bit, but...
Agreed. I also didn't know we were attending a festival screening because we had to stand in line for a long time. I'm not used to that. I didn't like that. But anyway, you said directorial debut? Mm-hmm. Okay, nice. I'm going to tell the story. The basic story is set in the late 70s in California. We find a married couple named Diana, and Beto. Mm-hmm. Diana's played by
Ariana Guerra.
And Beto's played by
Tenoch Huerta.
And I know him from...
The Forever Purge.
Yeah.
He is, I believe, also going to be a villain in the Black Panther sequel. Nice. So he's about to blow up. Oh, you know him from Sin Nombre as well.
Oh, nice. Mm-hmm. Okay, so the opening of the film is this couple driving from their home in Los Angeles to their new home in Golden Valley, which is an agricultural town in Central California. And they're moving because... Beto works in agriculture and he has taken a management position. So he's moving out there to work. They've been provided a house by his employer. It's important to know Diana is a writer / journalist, and she's been fired, and she's very pregnant. Mm-hmm. So kind of perfect timing for her to move with her husband. All right. They get there. Something weird happens along the lines of there being like an eyeball in a bag hanging from a tree in their house, which creeps her out. They transition then to, they're going to a party like the next day, so Beto wants to go and buy a gift. So they stop at this store, which is owned by a Spanish-speaking woman named Anita.
Mm-hmm. Played by Elpidia Carrillo, who is from Predator. I believe the only woman that is in Predator.
Oh. It's important to know as well that Beto is Mexican and migrated to the U.S. from Mexico, and Diana is Chicano. Mm-hmm. She's Mexican-American. She does not speak Spanish, only her husband. Okay, so they're at this gift shop, and it's clear Diana's not really into what's going on in the store because this woman is very lots of candles and crosses and praying to things, and there's sort of like a... She's kind of presented like maybe she's a witch.
Yeah, it's kind of like when the girls in The Craft go to that pagan store or whatever, yeah.
And Anita wants to bless... Well, first, Anita has an attitude with Diana because she speaks Spanish to Diana, and Diana says, "I'm sorry, I don't understand." And Anita goes, "Oh, I'm sorry, you look like..." Well, never mind. So that throws Diana off, and then Anita wants to bless her in her belly. She's kind of turned off by it, but she lets her do it. All right. Weird things start happening at the house, like more eyeballs in bags. Diana thinks she sees something in the reflection of this music box she found in the house, which causes her to fall. She's very pregnant. She goes to the hospital. We find out that this maternity center in Golden Valley only has 1 doctor and 2 nurses. Mm-hmm. Thankfully, Diana's fine. She has an experience at the party where she feels singled out again. It's also important to know that Beto's boss, the person who hired him, is also Mexican-American, but he does not speak Spanish, and he treats Beto like he's an other. Mm-hmm. Okay. To kind of wrap it up, there are a few things that are happening. We find out that many of the Spanish-speaking women in Golden Valley, or all of them, have been unable to have children. And Anita, the witch doctor lady, Catholic person at the store, she's saying it's a curse. Mm-hmm. Okay. But Diana, with her journalism background, finds all this stuff in the house, and she's putting 2 and 3 together, and she finds out that there's this new pesticide that's being used, and because many of these Spanish-speaking people, they or their spouses work in the fields, she thinks maybe it's the pesticide.
And all of this documentation is from the woman that lived there before.
Teresa.
Teresa had kind of copiously assembled a lot of cutouts and kept a diary that Diana can't read, so she's also
learning Spanish at the same time.
Yeah.
Okay, it culminates with us finding out the gag is that white man doctor
Dr. Bell.
Dr. Bell at the maternity center, he is sterilizing these Spanish-speaking women because he uses a derogatory term to describe Latinos, and he says that all they do is make babies and they can't even take care of them, so someone needs to do something. So it's like selective eugenics.
Yep.
The film opens by saying it's inspired by a true story, and in the end we see credits about like a hospital in LA having done this, and the women who were affected never getting like a settlement. But that's the end. The doctor and the Beto's boss is in cahoots with the doctor.
Yep.
They're both killed.
Well,
the nurse ends up getting away. Diana's able to have a healthy baby. And then we find out the nurse has moved down to Los Angeles and is trying to do the same thing down there.
Mm-hmm. Their gig that they have set up is Beto's boss is poisoning the women with this agua fresca he makes, so they feel sick enough to go to the clinic, and then they can't read the forms in English that the doctor and the nurses have them sign. That is saying they're volunteering to be sterilized.
Right.
Like that's what they're doing.
And the agua fresca is also a sort of a way to perpetuate this idea that they're cursed, because Anita's saying there are steps to being cursed. Like first you get a rash, then you're dizzy, but it's like, yeah, because you're being poisoned. Okay. Well, first off, I want to say, I think the story is very interesting. Very interesting. And there are components of the story that I think are very important topics to bring up, like the exploitation of agriculture workers, obviously like blatant ass racism, and the dynamics of sort of like native Spanish speakers against, so like maybe like Mexicans this is from my own personal experience, like Mexicans who, because I am Mexican, migrating from Mexico versus like Chicanos who may not speak Spanish very well like myself, and that dynamic, which is brought up in the film. So I think those are very interesting. However, this movie was a slight miss for me.
I can agree with that, but again, there were some things that I did like about it as well.
Well, we can talk about what we liked. But first, I want to say that I think the misses are really revolve around the supernatural component of the film, which is the part that's trying to make it a horror film.
Yeah.
This does not really feel like a horror film.
No, I think so it opens with a quote from Joseph Conrad, which to me was very telling about what we were going to get. And the quote was something, Conrad wrote Heart of Darkness, which, colonialist terror 101. But basically how there doesn't really need to be any evil in the world because mankind is evil enough on their own. And to me, in a nutshell, that's kind of what the film is doing.
Yes. So the horror component's missing, except for like a few sort of like sight scares with not even a few, two of us seeing like a reflection in a mirror.
There's an apparition that appears to...
But well, we can get into that because that apparition to me, first of all, looked a lot like Anita. So when we see her, I was just assuming Anita standing in the hallway.
I thought it was supposed to be Teresa, like the spirit of Teresa, whose mouth is like obfuscated, which is why she's not able to communicate.
I don't think it was effective.
I don't think so either.
I don't think seeing that spirit provided any sort of terror or creepiness.
No, I agree.
Because she also is pretty and wearing a really nice red dress. So she doesn't look scary, except her mouth is missing.
And how that plays into the character arc for Diana, who is basically an atheist, who then becomes religious, even though the situation couldn't be more plain to see that it's earthbound.
Well, then let's get into that because
Okay.
that's important. Diana, doesn't necessarily align herself with the beliefs of like Anita and the women in the community. And so it would appear that she's not religious. But then after all of this, we see at the very end when her sister comes to visit her, she has sort of adopted this idea that she needs to protect her son from evil spirits by wearing this bracelet.
With a talisman, yeah.
And when the sister tries to touch the bracelet, Diana says, "Oh no, don't take that bracelet off." So like now she's drinking the Kool-Aid. But like you said, to me that seems so ridiculous because it couldn't be more clear that what was happening to the women in this community is that a racist ass doctor was trying to like make sure that Spanish speaking women weren't having babies. So
well, especially when they make a point to show her Beto's doing that ritual on her belly with the huevo, and to have her react, be like, I can't believe I'm doing this. But
I think the balance of like, because Diana does see visions of Teresa, this beautiful woman in a red dress, screaming at her. But to me, it's more like delusion because she's being poisoned by the agua fresca and she's under a lot of stress. So I was a little disappointed that we don't really reconcile that she's aware that what was happening to her is a very real function of the mistreatment by this doctor and this boss man and not some evil spirit. But anyway, I'm just going to go down my notes. The thing that worked the least for me, and I feel bad because, what's this lady's name, Diana?
Ariana Guerra.
She was asked to speak at the screening, like impromptu, so she was not prepared, and she spoke. And she's a beautiful woman with a beautiful speaking voice. I think she sounds like she could read the news. Mm-hmm. But I think that really took me out of the story because her speaking voice and her acting was very like, yeah. I felt like I was watching someone reading the news.
Sure. I thought that she functioned best with opposite Huerta. Like, I thought they had a nice chemistry.
Her husband?
Yes.
Sure.
Like, I thought, but maybe, and we talked about this at length after the film, maybe that was more because of him. But I thought those two characters worked well together, but kind of any other time she's not doing that, especially having phone conversations with her sister, like all of that, it's the dialogue feels very leaden, the delivery is...
Yeah, I think if you combine the supernatural component, which just didn't work to create any sort of horror tension, combined with the lead actor, it didn't work for me.
Well, I was really waiting for Anita to come out because I always align with the witch kind of as the interesting character, and she is really put on the back burner.
Okay, I'm trying to be nice, but I thought the acting from almost everyone was crunchy. Anita's acting was crunchy.
Sure.
The doctor, the boss man. The only person whose acting I thought was at a level that seemed like, what's the word, professional? I don't know, was Beto's.
Mm-hmm. I think a function of that is also the script as well, though.
But the accent work...
The accent work
is also questionable because
yes.
There's a moment when, just several of some of the female like supporting characters, particularly two who make Diana feel bad at the party for not being able to speak Spanish. It just kind of goes like in and out. Then there's a character named Marisol who is the wife of one of the other workers at the farm with Beto. Mm-hmm. She is in the hospital, and that's how Diana finds out what's happening with the misleading these women to sign a consent form for sterilization. And she apparently can't speak any English. But then when she talks to the nurse, she's like, "Gracias, Molly," mm-hmm. like that. Mm-hmm. Like, and then immediately afterwards, like, "Oh, no, don't understand. No English." Like, I just thought the accent work was really questionable.
Sure, the level of comprehension about seems misleading from person to person, but then...
Well, Diana in particular, her understanding of Spanish seemed to really fluctuate.
But then she also is technically learning.
But this is before she's learning,
that's true.
Right?
That's true. I'm trying to give her the benefit of the doubt.
It was...
But, again, in real life, I've been to several family functions where I feel it's convenient for people not to understand things at certain times as well.
Speaking of that, so her character is so dramatic. Everything, it reminds me of season 5 of Drag Race when Jinx Monsoon won. And remember the challenge?
The telenovela?
The telenovela,
Sure.
and she's like, like that's kind of how Diana's acting is. And at the little get-together party, after they leave, she's arguing with Beto about her treatment, and she's like, I've never felt like such an outsider. I was like, really, girl? Because you look like you pushing 30, and like, I mean, this is the worst you've had it, that ladies at the party...
What did the lady call it, the party? Porrosita gringa?
Yeah, that's...
Like that's...
I feel like your own family probably has spoken to you worse about not speaking, because I know my aunts and grandma used to talk shit about me for my Spanish not being great. So I find it hard to believe that...
Sure, but you know, I appreciate that was a motif that's really worthy of exploring, and I feel like just that on its own makes more of an interesting film than the supernatural elements that... I also had a little bit of a problem with the cinematography in some scenes, particularly in the clinic at night, and I know that they're trying to go for, you know, an ambiance, but many times those shots, you just can't see anything. Like, she's on the phone learning key information about what's going on. You can't even... It's so dark, you can't even see her face.
Yeah. When Diana first finds the articles about the pesticides, I mean, she's done like 2 hours worth of research. She's read like a few pages of articles, and she thinks she has cracked the code. She tells her husband, like, it's the pesticides. You need to go to work and tell them to stop using the... Like...
Yeah.
And this is an intelligent woman, and she really thinks, like, this is the way to go.
Again, that's why I don't want to rag too much on the acting, because I think these problems are really in the script.
Sure.
With those functions.
But I don't know, the doctor's acting?
The doctor's acting is terrible. Dr. Bell, as we were talking about this right before filming, Alexander Graham Bell, you know, who invented the telephone, he was a proponent of eugenics. So I'm guessing that is their slight homage to him being an asshole. But anyway.
That's all I have, except that I think... Oh, well, first, the other thing that confused me is the boss man at the farm, he's in cahoots with this doctor wanting to make sure that these Mexican women, or Spanish-speaking women, are not having children. But then I'm thinking, like... but
don't you need more of them for that farm work?
You're exploiting them. So who's going to work in your farm?
Yeah, that was interesting, because how this case is unlocked is Diana goes to the county clerk's office, and then she learns that something happened in a similar town nearby. Also worthy of noting. I thought there was a really interesting shot early on where they juxtaposed like empty cribs in the maternity ward with like the empty fruit bins or whatever. I thought it was more interesting than her note-taking in the clerk's office, because she's clearly... The notes she's writing are kind of laughable.
Oh, I even wrote that down because she's at the county clerk's office ripping pages out of these like resource materials, and then her notes are like...
It happened in another town.
It happened in another town. The pesticides are killing the women.
Yeah, but anyway, she gets Beto to go to this nearby town, and what they find out is... this town was suffering from the same thing, but then suddenly improved vastly, and it's because Dr. Bell left. Dr. Bell left.
Okay, my final thought is I would love to see this topic made into like a dramatic thriller, something like Dark Waters, right?
The Todd Haynes film.
Yes, I like. But maybe like this sort of like agricultural community engaging in this behavior, or even the story that they say it's inspired by, like telling that story and finding out how someone uncovered that, and it would be riveting, and all the topics that were brought up could be more fleshed out. But I think because the tone, Diana's acting and being so dramatic was funny to me, but not in a way that I enjoyed.
I will say, I think, as I alluded to in the beginning of this, the crowd, which was, I'm assuming, a lot of Spanish language speakers, I found their kind of engagement with the film.
That's what I wanted.
It kind of enhanced it.
That's what I wanted to end with, I think, was, you know, I'm a gay, black, Mexican person, so I seek out content, generally like gay shit. I'll watch the worst gay shit just because I'm hungry for that. love black shit, so I watch a lot of shit that's kind of like, well, this is a little ghetto, but I really enjoy it. And I think too, like how people criticize Tyler Perry films. Do I think he's an excellent filmmaker? No. Do I think the stories he tells many people can relate to? Yes, and that has a lot of value. So to say they're not worth watching is not right.
Right.
And I feel that way about this film. Like the audience we were in, people were really like finger snapping and really getting into shit. It wasn't for me, but I think it really could appeal to some people. I just feel like it's a miss because it's such a riveting story that could have really had me on the edge of my seat. And instead I was kind of rolling my eyes like...
Well, because if you I remember taking several classes where you delving into the history of eugenics in this country, or even birth control, which they experimented on Puerto Rican women with abnormally large doses before they figured out the right dosing. But there are a lot of horrific horror stories about eugenics and about what we did to people in this country that are much more horrific than anything on screen really in this film. But that said, the representation, I love the era. I wanted it to be more than it was, but at the same time...
I think if you're watching a Blumhouse horror film and thinking you're going to get something like it's a fail. It's not going to satisfy that itch.
It's not on the level of Get Out, for sure.
No, but I mean, I just don't think it's scary at all. Like, I wouldn't even call it a horror film.
No, it really is, it's a social issue film masquerading as a pseudo horror film.
What would you give it?
2 out of 5.
I would give it 2 out of 5 as well. Anything else?
No.
Thank you. Bye.